There's a saying in football, you can never have enough pass rushers. And regardless of if you're in need of one or if you've got a pretty good group already, adding another super talented one, a guy that just had 18 and a half sacks a year ago to the mix can only help, right? So
you want Philly food?
Yeah, let's do it.
It has been interesting, and one thing that it has been very interesting is this defense making, I feel like, a complete 180, especially when you look at the numbers, right? And you, I know, dive into the film, you know what's really going on. I want to ask you this: is this like a change in schemes, or is this really just a testament to, Jonathan Gannon finally getting the pieces to the puzzle and the guys that he needs to work his system?
Have a coaching change, especially when you have a change in system that is like from one end of the spectrum all the way over to the other, it can take some time, right? And so that's going to be a little bit of a slow build to get you ready to where, all right, we're going to do everything now that we want to be able to do. A change in talent certainly helps, right? When you add in James Bradbury and Jordan Davis, and you go down the line of all these other pieces that they've added on that side of the football. But at the end of the day, when you look at the guys that were here a year ago, those guys are more comfortable. Those guys are able to bring these other players along and help those guys out. So you've seen spike and play from Slay and from Maddox and from right down. You go down the list, Josh Sweat, all the TJ Edwards, all these guys, Marcus Epps, everybody playing so much more confidently within the structure of this scheme. They're not different players. They're the same players that were there a year ago, but with confidence comes increased play speed and that ability to execute your role at a little bit of a higher level. They're just doing with everything that they're being asked to do right now. Is it always perfect? No, but defensive football is not perfect. It's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows when you play defense in football. So at the end of the day, this defense is going out. They're being opportunistic. They're creating turnovers at an extremely high rate right now. The plus 12 turnover ratio is through 12 games. I'm pretty sure through 6 games. I think it's the first time since 2013, I believe. So almost a decade that a team is this high in turnover margin in the first 6 weeks. So at the end of the day, this is a team that is really firing on all cylinders. And now it's just a matter of continuing to do so over the second half of the year.
Yeah, you bring up the turnovers, and you could talk about the secondary improving. You could talk about the linebacking core. Like you said, a lot of guys definitely taking that next step. And another place that I was a little bit worried about last year that is making me very proud this year is our defensive line. And we add another dog to that room. We were able to go out there and get Bears Robert Quinn. I want to ask you, obviously we're going to have to kind of wait and see how he's deployed and see how quickly they feel comfortable kind of unleashing him. But in your mind and how, in your opinion, I guess, how would you see the Philadelphia Eagles using Robert Quinn on this defense?
Well, that's the thing is when you have all of these other players up front, you're not leaning on him to play 80% of the snaps, right? And that's going to be a huge plus for Robert Quinn is that maybe the snap count is not as high as what he's had in Chicago, but the opportunity to get after the quarterback and be productive will certainly be there in this defensive structure. You've got Reddick, you've got Sweat, you've got Graham, you've got some other young player. My guess is that you'll see more Quinn and Graham paired together with that second group. But at the end of the day, these guys are all going to play plenty of snaps. I would venture to guess that early on, you'll see him featured in one of the two packages, either that 5-man front, that group that has Jordan Davis on it, or in that 4-man front. We'll wait to see exactly which of those two groups it is. But my guess is you'll see him kind of featured in one of those groups to start, just because he's only been here for a couple of days, and then slowly get more of an increased role. But the thing with Robert Quinn is that he can play anywhere you kind of need him, right? I mean, he mostly off the right side. That's where he's spent most of his career. But if you need him to play a little bit tight to the tackle, he could do that. He's kicked inside at times in certain rush packages where coordinators can get creative and run all kinds of stunts and twists. That's not something that the Eagles have done at a high volume so far. But when you add in a guy like Quinn, that opens up that door to be able to do so even more. So I think when you have a guy like this, he can plug it where it leaks. But at the end of the day, you're going to try and put him in position.
Yeah, and you said groups, and I think that we have like a hockey team when it comes to our defensive lines. It's just every 5 plays you're seeing a different group of guys, and I think that that's what's really made us successful, is being able to have those different groups and different sets of players, and being able to add, like I said, during the first half of the season, I felt very comfortable with our pass rush. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I felt we had some dogs out there. But in your opinion, how big or how important was it to add to that rotation and add another guy that can just kind of keep the guys that we've had here already even fresher going into a long 17-game season?
There's a saying in football: you can never have enough pass rushers, and regardless of if you're in need of one or if you've got a pretty good group already, adding another super talented one, a guy that just had 18 and a half sacks a year ago, to the mix can only help, right? So adding in a Robert Quinn who could come in and be fresh in the second half of game against tackles that have been in on every stretch. All you need is that one high leverage play. He has been a guy that has created the big play. We talked about that before with Hassan Reddick, is that, he's got that ability to take the football away, and he's done that at such a high rate ever since he's been in the NFL. Robert Quinn is just like that. So, hey, it's a situation. Take, for example, Jacksonville Jaguars game. The Jaguars get the ball back late fourth quarter. They're down by a touchdown. Their defense just got to stop. We punt the ball back to them. All right, the defense needs to get a stop. Well, now you get Hassan Reddick. Very first play of the drive. Beats the right tackle, gets home, gets the ball out, and gets the ball back to the defense. That's game, set, match, right? So adding another guy and Robert Quinn that also has that ability. We think back to Brandon Graham in the Super Bowl. Just having that guy that can, at the end of a game, and that was the thought process for the Rams a year ago when they traded for Von Miller. Was like, look, we know Von Miller is not the Von Miller of 2014. We know that that's not who he is. We need him to be that guy 3 times a game, 5 times a game, 10 times a game. And if he's able to also tutor and bring along some of the young guys, be a great person in the locker room, that's the value you're getting. And Robert Quinn, he does not have a Super Bowl yet. So this is a guy that is hungry for one. Adding him into this really, really good addition for this Eagles defense.
Definitely. I know he's not the only person in that locker room hungry for a ring. And not the only person in Philly hungry for another one. So it'll be nice to be able to get him one. Now, I know we're coming out of bye week, right? Bye weeks are always nice, especially when you're going into it 6-0. I mean, it felt very, very good. But you can never stay complacent, right? As an NFL team, you said it, I think, going into that home opener, that it's like it's a new season almost every week, right? 17 seasons in a 17-game season. So I want to ask you, we saw the addition of Robert Quinn, but how other ways, maybe that we didn't necessarily see, do you think the Eagles are trying to improve? What are some things you think they looked at in this bye week and maybe have a different way of moving forward throughout the rest of the year? Or do you think they're just, feeling comfortable staying pat?
I can tell you they definitely don't feel comfortable. They definitely won't be standing pat. That's for sure. I think when you look at this coaching staff and the player, to not get complacent. And so, they're basically what they'll do, or what they did last week was, hey, let's look at the things that we're doing really, really well. And then let's look at the things that we're not doing well. How do we fix the things that we're not doing well? And how do we do more of what we've excelled at so far? And so at the end of the day, on both, you look at the defense, the inconsistencies on third down, they've been excellent in the first half of games. And in the second half, as teams have run more tempo, it's something we talked about last week on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, did a little bit of a statistical project and just looked and all right, what's the difference defensively first half, second half? And one big thing is that with the Eagles offense being so explosive in the first half of games, teams felt the need that they needed to go up tempo. The Eagles defense were way out in front of everybody else in the NFL when facing up tempo plays in the second half of games. And so some of those plays can be kind of random. You get the 3rd and 17 long screen pass to Rondale Moore. And it's all right, that sucks. You hate to give those are random plays that happen, but look, missed tackles are things that can improve. The Eagles were one of the worst tackling teams in the second half of games over the first 6 weeks. So just little things like that. Hey, these are things we can fine tune and just continue to improve. And then I think offensively, just continuing to do what you do well, right? Getting a little bit better against the blitz, a little bit better on third down, but they were one of the best third down teams in football in the first 6 games of the season. So this is a team that is definitely doing a lot right, but you can always find ways to improve as well.
Yeah, and I think that's scary for a lot of NFL teams. I mean, we're going into a bye week. We were able to get healthy, 6-0, yet there's still, like Jalen Hurts likes to say, there's still a lot left on the table. There's still a lot that we can improve upon. So I'm excited to kind of see that happen.
Everywhere, this is for
you. Fly was flying on the team. Touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a bird game nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man soft. Philly fresco. Thanks for tuning